Perfect. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are super excited about this conference. We've been planning it for months. It's a CPG Startup Global Mini Conference, and this is our 109th event. We have two amazing keynotes, one from Nicholas from Flow Water and Susie Yorkie from Love Good Fats. And we have three fantastic panel topics and some pitches. So more to come around there. But first, of course, we just have to mention our sponsors and partners. We couldn't do any of this without them. Miller Thompson, System Bind, Hardboot, Flow, Water, BMO, and our partners, Seneca, York, Y-Space, Techstars, Founders Institute, Fast Start from Durham, and Y2. We have a few people that haven't joined us before, so you guys know a little bit about OPN. We've been around since October 2016 with the pandemic. It's allowed us to go global, which is amazing. We've had 108 events, and this is our 109th. We do podcasts with angel investors, and to date we've done over 100, and we've been doing those just since March. We also have over 100,000 impressions monthly. We talk to over 300 startups and every month, and we do reviews with them. We have a fund, it's called the Supporters Fund, and to date we've invested $2 million. Within the fund, we have over 45 angels. We've made 35 investments, and specific to CPG, our fund consists of 30%. So we have other upcoming events. We have our investment program, which is coming up September 22nd, 23rd, and 29th. We bring in 10 startup companies that run through the program, and we bring in the best to go into the 29th. And they will pitch to around 50 investors. And then we also have on October 28th, we have pitchitEDE, which is a fantastic global event where we bring in startups from all over the world. At our last event, we had 30 startups participate from 7 different countries. So here's our agenda for today. We have a keynote with Nicholas. He is from Flow Water. Super excited for that. We have panel topics, CPG industry trends and tactics for brands, winning the digital shelf, and leveraging sustainability to grow your brand. We also have another keynote with Susie Yorkie from Love Good Fats. And then at the end, we will do some pitches, which we're super excited about. So to introduce my partner, Jeffrey, we've worked together for coming up to 9 years, I think. He has been investing in startups for 20 years. He's invested in over 70 companies. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. These are some of the companies he's invested in. So, Jeffrey?
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you very much, Laura, for walking us through and getting us here today. Fantastic job. And very excited to be here and being able to have a CPG conference. I know in the past we've had a few others that from gaming, health and wellness, and today, of course, jumping into the CPG side, and we're big fans of supporting the areas that we like to invest in. And what better way to do this than getting in front of all of you like-minded CPG fans and bringing some great content that we can all learn through and share throughout our networks in time. Nicholas is a founder, an entrepreneur, an investor, and overall just a fantastic individual that I've had the pleasure of knowing for over 30 years. We actually met when we were teenagers. We met through one of his great friends and also part of Flow, and Mike Bajourney. So it's been not only an honor to have him as a friend, but also that we were able to work with, invest in multiple companies with Nicholas. And it's been a pleasure to be able to work alongside and share all of the great things that Nicholas and his teams have been able to do over the years. It's been pretty exciting. We use them quite often as a case study. And today we're going to talk about a lot of things that really encompass what Flow is, and that is experience. It's all about an experience that they've created. And over time, it's also the great things that you can do around social impact and change. And Nicholas has been able to encompass all of that in Flow. Not only are they a B Corp certified company, but they partnered up with Tetra Pak to change the way the water industry worked and operated by bringing to a renewable package that changed and removed the whole plastic concept, and utilizing sustainability, quality, and health and wellness as being the structure behind their business. Outside of that, Nicholas has done many other things, businesses that he's part of, and it's been not only a pleasure and an honor, but very exciting to be able to work alongside and learn from one of the great branders in the market. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Nicholas, and I'm just checking to see if he's been able to get in. Nicholas, welcome, my friend.
Yes, thank you. Technology, I love it.
Well, you're on board, and we made the great, fantastic intro. We'll snip it and send it to you later, but we're super excited to hear your talk today. And again, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Nicholas, did you want to share some screens, or did you want to
I'd
just...
love to. I'd love to share
Okay.
some pretty graphics around Flow.
Perfect. So I'm just going to make you host, which will allow you to share.
And I said all the right things, Nicholas. I gave you the great introduction. I shared not all of our 30-year history, but certainly shared the upbringing and all the great things you've done with Flow.
Great.
So we're excited to have you today. But we'll turn it over to you. And thank you very much again for being here today.
Thanks, Jeff. Wow, what a wild and crazy ride it's been as an entrepreneur, founding 11 companies over the course of the last 30 plus years. And Flow is just super near and dear to my heart. Having founded the company on the back of my family owning a very large artesian spring in the county that Jeff and I grew up in. It's been super special to see a brand and a company so wildly and widely received in North America and abroad over a short time period. So I founded it in 2014, and 7 years into it, we've unmasked not only a beautiful brand with an amazing customer, but we've actually built a very large business that has the opportunity to be a leading beverage company in North America. We have my family's artesian spring. We've built out a strategic partnership with Tetra Pak, which is this package where it was founded on plant-based renewable resources. So we're the first company in the world to put a Tetra Pak, a high-quality mineral water inside a Tetra Prisma, and we are now the largest boxed or carton water company on the planet 7 years later. So it's truly been an amazing journey from an entrepreneur standpoint, but also from just having a positive impact on the planet around us. And we've had some great statistics and a lot of traction with all across all of our retailers. We now have grown not only in Canada, where we launched the brand, but we've grown into the United States, where we have a spring that's twin spring to my family spring that releases 3 million liters a day of the highest quality still mineral water sold in North America. What makes Flow's water sources so special and why our 18 million plus customers love Flow is that it has the highest density of minerals inside the water than any other company sold domestically here in North America, against like international competitors that sell mineral water and plastic. But it has two functional health benefits. So it's naturally alkaline with a pH of 8.1, but it also has electrolytes in it. And so those two functional benefits allow us to really position the water against our sustainability as well as our core customer, which is the wellness woman and her family. And now we have 18 million plus customers, growing rapidly. Our last quarter results just got published. We are a TSX listed company now. We're public. Now it's a whole other story, a whole other ride. We'll need another keynote for that one. And we continue to grow our user base, as well as our growth, about 90% year to date. So we're super pleased with that, as well as our portfolio has expanded over the course of the last 5 years. We went into organic certification in natural mineral water and flavors. We won 2 awards, Best Flavored Water on the Planet 2019 and 20, and prediction, we're going to win it this year with our new flavor, Peach Blueberry. But then we also started going into nutrition, infusing nutrition like collagen into our water. And we've recently announced a new product line, an organic certified vitamin water with functional immune support. So we're really building out a beautiful wellness beverage portfolio against a consumer that wants better for you, better for the planet. This is my favorite slide as an entrepreneur, to see this sort of level of growth and partnerships over the last 7 years is just a true testimony to the tenacity it takes to be an entrepreneur in CPG. But also that when you really have good product market fit, these things really expand fast, and it's really exciting to be in CPG and better for you products because of that ability to scale and expand both in Canada and the United States when you really have a good customer fit with a product. So we started off in Canada as a natural grocery product. So we're sold across all Whole Foods and all of our leading retailers in the first year. And then we expanded rapidly into food, drug, and mass with Loblaws, Sobeys, Metro, London Drug, Rexall, all the major locations in food and drug. And we had great velocity, which is one of the KPIs we use to track the life of a brand and how good it's doing at retail. And we started building out our distribution and ACV, all commodity volume, so the number of doors that we have. And so we managed to grow, Canada with, I think, around 7,000 doors. We have 51% ACV, so almost, you can find Flow pretty much everywhere in Canada, and we're growing rapidly within that. And then we launched and built out our facilities and launched in the US, and we've had an amazing growth. Whole Foods national listing, Sprouts in the natural category, and then with the help of Gwyneth Paltrow and a couple of our celebrity shareholders, we really blew the brand up in 2019. And got brand awareness of over 22 million people, which is 10% of all premium water drinkers. And we started converting them into customers in 2019 and 2020 as we rolled out gas convenience in Canada, as well as food, drug, and mass in the US. And launched our new products, won Best Flavored Water, built a big factory in Verona. And then this year, our momentum carried through with the company actually going public on the TSX in July. So we're super excited about the momentum we've had, and we're way more excited about the road ahead of us as we professionalize our business. I have a new CEO now. My title is called Founder and Executive Chairman, Maurizio, who came to us running one of the world's largest water companies, Nestle Waters. And he's built more billion-dollar premium brands than any other executive on the planet. So we're really excited about the future of the company as a public company now, and the future of Flow as a brand. It's never been brighter.
Nicholas, that's amazing. And I'm going to jump in because I want to ask questions, even though obviously you're doing an amazing job on sharing about the business. The kind of questions I want to dive into is that when you go back to May 2018, when you were in Whole Foods and Longo's, what kind of held you in there? What was the part that really, I know we had many conversations in Liberty Village back then, but what was the thing that really drove you to keep pushing this brand and this health and wellness sector? Health and wellness back then was not really in the purview of investors or where anything was going on, but you really stuck to it and you really pushed it and grinded it out. Can you just give us a little bit about what that journey looked like from May 2018 to today, which obviously now today they're knocking down your door to get your product in store. What did it take as an entrepreneur? What did it take as a brand to really escalate what you guys were doing to kind of make that push and drive health and wellness?
Do you mean 2016 when we're in Canada?
Or sorry, 16. Yes.
Okay, yeah, because that's a totally different conversation. 2016 to 2018 is a totally different conversation than 18 to 20. Because that's our U.S. expansion. So, I mean, those are the most difficult days of development. Like, there's no doubt. Like, the energy that you have to put into your business is unparalleled to like anything we've ever done. I don't care about marathon running or anything like that. Entrepreneurship and being an entrepreneur, especially when you have a successful product, it takes like you're a pro athlete in what you're doing. You're like working 14-hour, 15, 16-hour days. You're traveling nonstop. You're raising capital. You're expanding and in a very, fragile time of the business because that's when the brand's just like you got product market fit. So that's the first bit. In software, we used to call it the beta version, right? Like that was 2015, where we were just, okay, do people actually like this? Is it going to really work? And then 2016, we saw the company and the product and the brand really work. People were loving Flow, and we're expanding into distribution points that we're getting very good velocity. But it was also a very challenging time because we were using a co-packer, and a lot of people on the call will understand this, being it's a CPG focused conference. We had to use a co-packer to use our products, and the co-packer was not equipped to making water. They were equipped to making wine. I think there's like a biblical passage that never mix water with wine. But we had that challenge ahead of us. And it was a very challenging thing because co-packers want to get paid right away. And so I remember in 2016, as we saw the brand really starting to take off in Canada, we had a lot of pressures around co-packing. And we had to make a really big decision in 2017. It was a decision that was, I think they say, necessity is the mother of invention. But after co-packing and losing hundreds of thousands of units, not small amounts of units, to the poor taste quality that was coming out, we had to make a choice. We had to say to Tetra Pak and our shareholders, we need to build a facility and go vertical integration in order to maintain control of the quality of the product, but also scale into the United States, because we wouldn't be able to do that with the margins that we were getting after producing and shipping product over to Vancouver. We were like operating on 10% gross margins. Well, you need closer to 40 or 50, 40, 30 to 40% to even make a business out of things. So that's when we partnered with Tetra Pak and our shareholders. We raised our Series A, $10 million. And we built out our first facility, which was just an amazing experience to build out a manufacturing facility. And then in 2017, luck struck twice. We got our listing expanded, and we expanded with Whole Foods into the United States, which they've been an instrumental partner into building out the brand of Flow across every state and every major market in the US. And then those two big momentum drivers really set the tone to the brand to where it is today, which is a loved brand with many millions and millions of customers growing rapidly. But that time was very challenging, and we had to make a very aggressive and risky decision to be able to inject that much money into it in advance of the growth. But then we well fed into the growth, and then in 2019 we had to build another one.
And that's amazing. And I remember back in the day when we were talking about this, and there was investors saying another water company, and everybody was kind of poo-pooing on this idea of just another company coming in. And one thing that I really loved about what you did with this was you weren't just another water company, you were a brand. And I think there was a big miss in the market, and today there's still a big miss everywhere, is that people never looked at this as what can I do in a category that just doesn't have any life? It's the standard cookie cutter, same old thing. And then along comes Flow Water, and Flow represents something. And that something became something obviously admirable today and something they wanted to be. And obviously you had the vision for this. What was the reason that you went, being a tech guy, went heavy on the brand? What got you to think, man, this is a real big opportunity. I need to be here.
Yeah. I'm just flipping around. Yeah. So the one thing that's special about Flow, and what really made me start the company was the sustainability aspect of what we're doing. It got us into the doors. No one even knew what alkaline water was, and alkaline minerals, and all the mineral waters were sold by big companies. And so this was very disruptive, this package format. Made from paper and plants, 75%. No one had ever seen it before. And we built the entire company on the back of the sustainability. But what was interesting about that is that our customer emerged to really like the sustainability, but love the functional benefits and taste of the water. I've been drinking it my entire life, Jeff. So, you know what I mean? Like, I knew that Flow tastes incredible. It's probably the best tasting water on the planet. And hopefully I'll be able to win an award. We'll be able to win an award one day for that. But it has a phenomenal taste profile against competitors like Fiji and Avion and any other major mineral water company in the world for still mineral water. And I knew it was going to be great because the functional benefits of alkalinity, our customer in the natural grocery space, they understood what it is and they loved the taste. And that's why we got repeat purchase. And when you start to see that product market fit, there's nothing more energizing to a company or a person or a brand, or an entrepreneur, that when you have a customer emerge and start talking louder than you about the brand, and it's all like just amazing stuff, and you start to see it take off. That's the same as running a high tech company, or any company for that matter. But it's funny, we revert back to the tech experience. What also made Flow successful is that we built out the first e-com platform. And, now 30% of our core Flow branded products are sold through e-com subscriptions. And so we innovated from the start. If you remember, in 2016, we had electric vehicles all over Toronto delivering e-com subscriptions. Who would ever do that for a water company, right? Like, that's not normal stuff, but that actually made us super different. And super successful at breaking the brand and building out our customer base, because we're doing it with our own distribution, our own trucks, our own e-com platform, our own growth metrics, our own digital marketing team. So we really invested heavily in that, and it turned out to be a very successful part of building the company to where it is today.
I love it. And I think that over the years, I first would share that your brand was bigger than your revenues, that you just were able to encompass all that differentiating components way back in the day that really allowed you to stand out on shelf, stand out in the consumer's mind. And I think it was Josh Donaldson was one of the first pro athletes that reached out and said he wanted to be your affiliate and run and drive and help you guys on the promotion side. And I think that speaks volumes to how you built your brand and how you got people interested in it, is that you eventually touched and resonated with people in high profession sports or high professional sports, but also just around the world, around people that were looking to resonate with something that matched their health and wellness. Is there something that you can share as we wrap up here? One last thing you want to share to the entrepreneurs out there that have witnessed your vision and saw what you've created?
Quickly.
I only got one thing to share. PSX ticker is FLOW, FLOW. You can go, check it online. We love our shareholders. We believe in the future of making the world a better place, one package at a time. Thank you for having me, Jeff. And team.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Nicholas. Great job. And amazing what you've done with this brand. And we're excited to see what you do in the next 3 to 5 years. It's going to be amazing. And I'm sure you're going to change the world again. So thank you for being sustainable and making the world a better place.
So we have, now we have our first panel topic. We're going to talk about CPG industry trends and tactics for brands. We have 4 great people, and Ted, David, Drew, and Jared. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself for 30 seconds, and Jeffrey is going to be moderating this panel. Ted, do you want to start with you since you're first on the list?
Sure. So yeah, I'm Ted Fleming. I'm the founder and CEO at PART1 Brewing. We are makers of some of the world's best craft non-alcoholic beers that are sold across Canada and the US. And not only are they great tasting, but they're as low as 10 calories a can, which is really a key driver for us and helps us play in the health and wellness space.
Awesome. David?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is David. I'm the Associate Director of Entrepreneurship at York University. So what I essentially do is I work with entrepreneurs to help them scale and grow. So we have a food and beverage accelerator. That's a 5-month program that's focused on helping food and beverage companies go into mass retail and understand the process, what it's like, and just get prepared for that. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, David. Ju, and completely tell me if I am pronouncing it incorrectly.
No, it's Ju Young, but Ju is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thanks for your time. My name is Ju Young. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Suku Vitamins. We offer sugar-free, sugar alcohol-free, plant-based gummy vitamins. We have about 15 products out in the market today. We have a few more coming out next year, and we're available nationally across Canada, regional market in US, and in China, and some other places internationally. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared?
Awesome. So I'm Jared. I'm the president over at the Think Tank. We're a full service communications agency that works with consumer packaged goods brands to help them drive trial, lift sales, and grow baskets in retailers mostly across North America. And I also have a food product myself that just launched August 1st in the nut butter space. We're Wanda Nut Butters. We are internationally spiced nut butter, starting with 2 peanut butters. And happy to be here.
Amazing. Jeffrey, why don't you kick this off?
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, guys. I'm excited to talk to all of you because, well, I know all of you and we have chatted at some capacity over the years through your businesses. And I think the way things are going today, that really the industry is built off trends, and it's really understanding what those tactics are to kind of really push those trends forward. And you guys right here on this panel really talk really strongly to those trends, which start with really pushing non-alcohol, getting into the no sugars, and in the gummy bear side with vitamins. And of course, now Jared talking with your nut butter. I'm excited. I want to try this because I'm a huge fan of Wow Butter and all of these plant-based peanut butters that are out there. So this is amazing. So congrats, and very excited to participate on that side. But all of these pieces all fall into the category of working with the trends and the way the world is operating. And maybe, David, we can start with you. Since you're kind of at the forefront of all of this, you're working with a lot of these startups that are coming into this space. What do you look for, and how do you stay on track of the trends, and what things engage you to work with these companies and bring them in and help accelerate them?
Yeah, no, thank you, JP. I think it's extremely tough. I think to your point, there's always new brands popping up. I find that every time I'm scrolling through Instagram, there's like 5-6 different brands. I'm like, now I want to try it. What is this? And you get into this dark hole and rabbit hole of figuring out what they are. But I think some of the trends that we're seeing, of course, is the no sugar or kind of like the good for you type of stuff. Those are definitely huge trends that we're seeing More and more plant-based stuff that I see are coming up, and I think it's becoming more normal. I think, we're all used to the impossible meat, the Beyond Burgers and things like that, but now we're seeing more like ground meat. Like we just saw one company that's like a sliced meat, but that's plant-based. So we're starting to see more variety in the alternative meat, which is also fantastic as well. But I think the one trend that I'm seeing is, I would say it's not even the product itself, is that we're seeing our brands are coming out with a messaging and a very concise branding. Like I almost see that a lot of companies are going brand first and saying, how does my brand stand out against all the other competitors or be unique in itself? And they're building this entire story. And recently we had a conversation to had an opportunity to talk to Midday Scores, and they were telling us how they came up with their story and how they were, unapologetic about that we were doing. They built this brand, and it was just such a different approach. And I think we're starting to see more people try to go that route. We always remind companies, hey, there's only one Midday Scores. You got to find your own voice and your own story. But branding is something that I think has become a bigger trend, not more than the product itself, but equally as important as the product, is that they're looking at how are they being packaged, what is their voice, what is their messaging, and how does it come across to consumers, and what are their values. And that's become a big topic, I think.
I love that. And it's so true that brand, and Nicholas talked about how brand played a big part even in the start of his company. And Ted, I think this is something that really kind of resonates in your side of things. You have, and you didn't have to create the story and make it up. You created a storyline based off of where you felt you were back in the day when you started to create this brand, and you really emphasized that and you pushed behind this. And I think 6-7 years ago, there wasn't much going on in the non-alcoholic space. So how did you decide that this was something that you really wanted to get behind? And even though that it was going to be a tough slug, how did you kind of get in there and decide, you know what, I got to build a brand, build a story, and really jump on this? And it wasn't a trend at the time, so you kind of built the trend, if you will.
Yeah, thanks, JP. I was solving a problem, and I was solving a problem that was very important to me on a personal level. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease about 10 years ago, gave up alcohol as part of a shift towards a healthier lifestyle to manage that condition. And I was a craft beer lover. I loved going out and exploring craft beer, socializing with friends. There were so many family events that, a lot of the social aspects of those revolved around sharing a drink. And I felt disconnected from that when I was going through this. And so, Partake was an answer to my own experience and my own problem. But in chasing that solution, I seem to have solved that problem for tens of thousands and maybe someday millions of other people. And, the brand is very important, and the purpose behind our brand is integral to our messaging today. But the brand didn't start with that in mind. I kind of learned that as I was going on, and the early days, I started to realize, hey, I've got a product here. It's solving a problem, but in solving the problem, I'm creating a community around, like-minded people or people going through the same thing as me, and that message, that authenticity really resonates with people. And so I think you've heard with Nicholas, purpose is important, and you can have a variety of, your purpose doesn't have to be health and wellness and, making alcohol and social drinking easier and more inclusive for people who don't drink or want to drink less. It could be about environment. It could be, I've seen some new products out specific to gut health and microbiome, which for me was someone with an intestinal issue is, that's important. And I'd like to see those brands start from that, that small, very specific problem they're looking to solve and go mainstream from there. And that's what we've experienced. We started with this small niche group, but we are now going mainstream in a big way because there's such a drive towards health and wellness, and people are having a new look at the way alcohol fits in their life and where drinking non-alcoholic products like Partake fit into their lives. And I think there's a recognition with products like ours that have enhanced the taste and sensory and social experience of not drinking, even when you are drinking. I think it's way easier for people, and we've got this great wave behind us of people looking to moderate and have a healthier relationship with alcohol.
And it's interesting, and you brought up a lot of key points there, having a key problem, having a purpose, building community. And these are all part of that tactics that kind of build and coincide with that trend. And as you mentioned, there wasn't much of a trend back then. You were literally solving a problem. and now the trends caught up. And now you're allowed to kind of ride that wave because you kind of envisioned that this would come at some point in time, which is amazing. So now taking that and going over to what you've built, Drew, it's very much a similar kind of process. You found a gap, you looked at where it was missing, and you decided, I need to come in here and make a change and bring something that's going to bring a healthier lifestyle to young and old people. What kind of got you on that track of diving into this and creating the brand that you have?
Yeah. So I would say about 3-4 years before I started, I was actually studying to be a naturopathic doctor. And during that time, my last year in clinic, I was seeing patients, and you would provide them with this fully planned schedule, their supplement regime, but they weren't getting better. And there's this huge stigma towards people where they can't admit they have a fear of swallowing pills. I'm not sure if you like swallowing pills or not, but I guess you just can't go to a doctor and be like, hey, I can't eat this because I have a fear of swallowing pills, and that one inside. And, to help patients like that, you look at the gummy vitamin industry, because that's a perfect solution for them. But the gummy vitamins have all these sugar, artificial flavoring, coloring, all that, and gelatin and things that you don't really want to give them. You have to give it to them because there's no way. And Times.com compares those gummy vitamins to Halloween candy. So giving think of your little ones, when you want them to be healthy, giving these candies, you're actually giving them extra sugar, which they don't really need. So, and because of all these, and then you look at the ingredients in the gummy vitamins, they usually just scratch the surface of the daily intake of the nutritional values that they need. So there was a huge gap there, and we just said, okay, we need to give something to the customers or patients, provide them something where they want to take the gummy vitamin that's actually healthy, that's actually nutrition, and it doesn't have any sugar. And that's where things, I guess, started.
Oh, I love that. And again, you were solving a problem that you were living in. And I think that really resonates with this panel, is that a lot of the businesses, and of course, a lot of startups and entrepreneurs, a lot of what they do, it always resonates with themselves. It's a problem that they've faced. They've analyzed it. They looked at it and said, is this something I can build bigger and better? And Jared, you come in at this from a completely different angle, because you are the one that helps communicate back to the world to help share these brands and what they're doing and why they're doing it, telling their story and helping push that out. But now you've kind of fed into that, taking that learning over the last 4 or 5 years of building up your business and your communication side. Now you've launched your own product and kind of taking the learning to drive into that. Are you also taking that same tactic and looking at it and saying, you know what, I need to build a brand to fix this, because there might be a lot out there already, but here's how I'm going to cut a little slice for your new product, nut butter?
So yes and no. I'm definitely trying to build a brand around what the product is, but I'm not solving a inherent problem. I'm one of those products where I found a gap within what was in the market. So my story very much began from I'm already a pretty, not to toot my own horn, but a pretty skilled home cook. I got all the toys and gadgets. I like to fiddle with food. I like travel, like exploring, new cultures through cuisine, as does my wife. And through the pandemic, I found myself in the span of a week making a couple dishes from different parts of the world, both of which used peanut butter. And a Thai one I was making, I just kind of thought in that moment, man, I wish this had lemongrass and lime leaf and ginger, the like key Thai flavors. And something just clicked. I went, oh, that could go in peanut butter. And that kind of kicked off this whole journey of exploration to realize that there's no savory peanut butters in the Canadian market. There's only a handful in the American market. And I've talked to them, and they're amazing, amazing human beings, because they shared so much. They were so helpful. So I found a gap, but in the way I've positioned it and the way we're targeting our audience definitely speaks to the needs of those people. So we ended up being an internationally spiced nut butter versus a savory one. And that spoke very much to use case in terms of our target audience, who are mostly healthy, healthier individuals who have a healthy mindset, who are using peanut butter on a regular basis as part of their protein, or they're putting in their shakes or their oatmeal bowls. So for all of them, the health benefits and the fact that we're only made out of peanut, spice, and salt is a big deal. So everything we do for them is around that. Our other key one are those who are trying to cook a lot of foods, but don't necessarily have lemongrass and lime leaf on hand, for example. I cook Thai all the time. I don't have that regularly in my cupboards or in my fridge. So having it as a hack, so I can quickly whip something together, or to take something like a hummus dish and just give it a different spin so easily. So for them, it's all about a unique new food product. So the messaging and the way we position the brand for them is all around that unique feature. And I think that's something that, both Ted and Jung-Yoon have done a really good job on, was in their marketing, is really targeting specifically to their target audience. And that's something that I've talked to a lot of founders about recently. I'll call it Broya, who's a bone broth, as a prime example. They've just changed some of their positioning on their packages due to shifting consumer interests and priorities when it comes to bone broth. And when they look at beef, they're more concerned about being grass-fed than organic. So organic's now dated. So something that I think a lot of newer CPG founders are maybe struggling with, or I see them doing, is trying to be everything to everyone because they're a product that fits so many different niches, or they can hit so many different of those trending diets. So your keto, your Whole30, your paleo, all these things, but are all of those really important to you? And I think that's something that we have to really fine tune and understand. Who's your real audience? Are you really targeting that Whole30 consumer? Or are you targeting a healthy mindset consumer who might also just happen to be Whole30? And understanding that really results in the success that someone like Ted and all of the panelists and all the brands you're going to hear from today have really nailed down, is really getting their naming and their positioning just right to really identify with a target audience beyond just what the hot trend is. And that's why they've been so successful when that trend hits.
And that's well shared. And it kind of, it goes back into the whole community side and how you've built out that community to focus around your type of product, the type of people that are interested in your foods or in the service you offer. So it's fascinating that how you've kind of had to take that approach with your own brand, but also how you're helping communicate this to your other clients. David, when you have all of these companies coming in and you're picking through hundreds of CPG brands, how are you picking the trend or picking the companies that you think are most viable to succeed in this category when you're getting so many micro CPG brands chopping into, say, Kraft peanut butter, which was your staple tabled product for, 50 years. And now all of a sudden they're losing market share to a million smaller brands. How are you kind of working in that trend to say, all right, you guys are in, love where you're going, this is a good fit? How do you kind of shuffle through that? Because it's got to sound like it's crazy that there's so many brands in each category that are kind of coming out of nowhere. How do you decide as an organization on which ones you want to get behind?
That's a great question. And I think first it's, we all have our own personal bias. I'll have my bias. I think the great thing of what we've built is we have our selection committee, but we've also reached out to a ton of folks, say, hey, here's a couple of different brands. I know Jared's been one of them who's reviewed it for us. And that's what we try to go out to the community and say, hey, like we know some buyers or we know some distributors, and we say, look, we know this is not your day-to-day job, but for us, help us understand, is this something you would get excited behind? So we're trying to go right into the industry and ask them to help us identify folks. It plays a factor. I don't want to say it ultimately decides for us because it comes down to the founder and the way it tastes. I think one of the most difficult things throughout the pandemic is trying to taste the product. When you're trying to interview a company, you can't have the product in front of you. We have to schedule like shipping dates and things like that, or we go out and purchase them. So that's always a challenging part. But one thing that I think for us, it's looking, the trends definitely help set something up. But I think more importantly, when we're picking a company for acceleration and growth, it's not only just about how different the product is and how innovative it is, and what buyers buy. It's also for us, the huge part of it is getting behind the founder and understanding their objectives and what they're trying to achieve. For us, we always say we can only help so much. If the founder's not going to drive the business and do the work day in and day out to get things done, there's nothing we can do on our end. And I think that's always the biggest thing, understanding some of those pieces and how the founders can help. But for us, it's really leaning on the community. Folks like Jared's been fantastic. I know JP has been fantastic. Sometimes we'll even go to Ju Young, who was part of our first cohort, and just say, hey, what do you think of this? Is it crazy? Is it good? Is it not? And I think perspective is really important when you're in this industry.
No, I love that. And you're right. Perspective is everything. It helps you decide where things are going to go or at least what you should be getting behind. And what I like about that, and obviously with you being part of your initial cohort, they're obviously doing fantastic things. When you kind of got in there, Drew, with your first grouping, you had, I think, maybe 3 or 4 products when you first started, and you've kind of expanded that portfolio. Are you following trends? Are you looking at the areas and saying, okay, this is kind of like Flo is doing with collagen, and they're saying, okay, you know what, this is coming up, this is being trendy, we should jump into this, see if we could flood the market with our great product and still fix the problem by taking out the sugars and all those great things. How did you decide when and was the right time for you to expand your product line?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you're in the industry and then when you start your product correctly and you start building a relationship with the buyers will tell you through their category and say, listen, have you ever considered this? Have you ever considered that? And then the customers also come back at you and say, hey, I really love this product. Would you consider making something for this? And then we will look at our roadmap and depending on the demand and I guess the trend, and we would actually accelerate that further. And because our product was so unique on its own, it just wasn't there then. That's why we just exploded our category. Instead of doing 4 at a time, we actually launched 8 because there were so many categories that people were looking for this for these gummies, with this option for these gummies, which didn't exist, and they wanted some solution. We said, okay, we could be that, and that's how I guess things start escalating for us.
And that's awesome. So you hit the I guess the nail or the hammer on the head, whatever that saying is. But you listened and you were part of the environment. So you're in the thick of things. You're really diving into the category you're in. You're learning it. You eat, breathe, and sleep it. So you can modify and change as the environment is working through. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, essentially. So especially with product development, doing R&D all the time, we're just making sure we're up to date with the flavors, the trends, and also the ingredients.
I love that. And Ted, I see you guys on the shelf all the time in LCBO. You have the same section, straight down 2 or 3 shelves, always stacked in there. I love it. How did you guys play in this side of things? How did you, one, expand in, but also starting to hit the flavor taste of what everybody else wasn't doing? Was that also just listening to the category managers and working with them closely? Or was this kind of you just kind of keeping on trend while creating the trend to say, hey, you know what? People love Indian Pale Ale. I'm getting into that. And we're going to build out these 3 new brands because that's the timing and we should be doing this.
Yeah, at the beginning for me, the first product we launched was an IPA, and that was more or less, it was a challenge, right? Like no one had ever made a great tasting craft non-alcoholic beer before. So I said, let's try the hardest thing we think there is to do, which was the IPA. And if we can do that, then we can do everything else. And so, that started from that perspective of let's start with the hardest and work our way backwards from that. I think subsequent to that, as we built that community and our fan base, we've really stuck to integrating them into our product development pipeline. We have a core group of super fans. They're constantly giving us ideas, and it's a large enough group now that it has statistical relevancy in terms of potential market success. So we rely on them very heavily to help inform us of what they're looking for, and if it's in alignment with our purpose. We haven't gone into specific categories that we thought, were outside of our core reason for being. But if it falls within that, it's something that like we're all into trying to launch new products. We send them out in very small batches to these super fans. We get their feedback in a structured process, and then we launch it to e-commerce. And then if that's successful for us, then we get it pushed out into retail. So it's a deliberate process, but it's very collaborative with our fans and with our community.
So you're taking a lot of input, not only from the categories and who you're working with, but you're taking more in from your fans and helping them generate and drive the value for that next product line, helping them test it, give feedback so you can always perfect it. Now, if I take that type of spin in how you're kind of moving with the trends and you're growing with your community, if I look at a steam whistle as an example, when they went into market, they had a different approach. They went in with, we're going to create one beer, we're going to have the best beer in the world, and it's just going to be this one crisp beer. And I think it was 20 years or 25 years before they actually went to a second product. And I'm sure their community must have been pushing them saying, come on, let's get a flavor profile here. Let's do something different. What I'm finding now in a lot of the last 5 years with CPG brands, that they're expanding quicker and faster. Their communities are driving more flavor changes in their product lines than ever before. Do you see that is a trend, or is it just shelf acquisition, What do you think is driving that? And does it cost you more time and money to do this, or does it bring a lot more value back to your business?
Yeah, I think there's, to some degree, there's a chasing of revenue and valuation in that sort of mentality. For us, we have very clear guardrails. Like, we've had customers say, why don't you make a 3% beer? And we could easily do that, and we could easily market it. And we have the channels and the sales force and the technical know-how to make that happen. Is it aligned with our purpose? No. And so we have these very specific guardrails that say this is something that would fall within our purpose, and this is something that would fall outside of that. And we're very deliberate in letting that guide us in those types of decisions. So we say no to way more things than we say yes to. And I think that's a fundamental strength of our business and my team.
It's amazing. So you're really holding on to that brand value. You've created the brand, you've created how it's going to look and feel, and you're sticking to that story. Jared, how do you keep these businesses from not staring off of all of that? How do you get them on plan and staying inside of that brand function? Because I think that's huge. And as David alluded to in the first, when he talked about this, that brand is the biggest thing that's happening right now in trends. How do you get people to communicate and stay on target? Just as Ted said, because I think that's hugely important, that they're not creating this 3% beer where they probably could eat up the market, but then people will be confused. Wait, are you a non-alcoholic beer, or are you just a less alcohol beer? So I guess there's some of that confusion. How do you keep people aligned?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and there's a real, kind of like Ted was saying, there's a real desire and a real fear of missing out if you don't jump on some of those trends. Literally this morning I was on Simrise's trend spotter, looking at the food and beverage flavor trends for the next year, right? And this is the type of stuff I stay on top of. And there's lots of stuff that you could easily make a new Goes or a new beer and pull one of those flavors, do an LTO, and you'd kill with it for sure. But the cost of tying up your R&D for something you're going to run once that doesn't have an extended period because it's a one-off flavor for most small brands isn't worth that cost up front. And so, I spend a little bit less time, fortunately, trying to keep brands on to their brand image and their brand identity, because they're usually working either with another agency, or you run into people like the MDS team who just know it so well, they live, breathe, and die it. Where I come in more is when they start to grow and they start wanting to spend their marketing dollars. I have a lot of founders, I think I have the reputation now, people call me like, how do I spend this? Because I want to go do this in this retailer because I just got my national listing with them. And there's a lot of financial barrier to doing a lot of really big, flashy things in store in particular. And so there's a lot of helping brands understand, well, having that shelf plate and doing this giant promotion in that store is going to be costing you, not that 10,000 you think it's going to cost you, it's going to be costing you like 80 to 100,000. That's not to say you can't do something cool with this. Let's just talk about how we frame that up so it not only matches your budget, but also communicates what you need to communicate. And that's where it goes really back to understanding who your target audience is, especially if you're a really unique breakout brand. And I'll use Midday Squares as an example because they're refrigerated, right? No one's going to go by default to the fridge to look for a chocolate bar. So in that case, this is where it gets really fun for what I do, is how do we now communicate to the consumer all the great benefits of what you are, while also saying you have to find us over here. And that's a challenge in and of itself. That's really where the agency thrives, is how do we do those really unique, special communications where you're trying to drive that traffic away from that main brand. And that's why it's so important that when I start talking to brands, one of the first things we talk about is their identity. Who's your audience? How are you communicating with them? How have you done it? What have you tried? And we really dig into every single little detail we can so that we can understand what that is. So whatever campaign ideas we come up with, totally aligned, not just to a broad stroke target audience, but to exactly who you're trying to target, and it aligns to your brand, because your communication has to be the same whether you're interacting with that brand in store, on TikTok, on Instagram, some experiential handout display down at Union Station, wherever they come across you, that the consumer has to have that same message.
And when you're putting this message together to kind of push your brand out there and keeping to your brand standards, as we've all kind of talked to, how do you avoid the distractions? Because I'm sure there's got to be a lot of tactics that are just time consuming and distracting versus the ones that are going to help you pay off. And you can look back to some of the trends that, David mentioned on the meat side, the plant side, everything is going to this sustainable plant-based, avoiding kind of all of the things that have been used in the past. Now, when you're going into marketing and other factors, how do you avoid some of those tactics that will just be time consuming and wasting your value, or as Ted alluded to, building something that's going to be 3% when it takes you off what you're actually focused on? So how do you kind of work your way through that? And do you have 1 or 2 points that would say, you know what, just stick to these things and this will help you move forward, or try it all?
Definitely don't try absolutely everything, because you just don't have enough time. You legitimately just don't have enough time or money, but mostly time. I just started getting on TikTok. I would never use it personally, but for the butter, of course, for Wander, of course, I have to. And it takes so much time to create content on TikTok. And do I know if it's valuable for me or not yet? I don't know, but I know so many brands who've had success. I have to at least give it a try. So I think when you're looking at it from a brand standpoint, first and foremost, you have to understand who your brand is and where your target audience is and how you want to be viewed by them. That in and of itself will potentially eliminate some platforms or how much effort you put into certain platforms. From there, it's going to come down to the budgets and the amount of impact you can have on those budgets. So, Hush is a great example. I happen to love some of what they did. They took out a huge display in the hockey arenas for the playoffs, right? I have no idea what they paid, and it was a huge gamble. But it massively paid off them because their target audience was watching in terms of their buyers, right? So they had a humongous surge after that. And it was risky. It was a big risk to take, but it made sense because, of course, they looked at it from a very strategic standpoint. And I think that's the biggest thing is you can definitely, it's always worth looking into a trend, but you have to look at it very objectively about whether or not you pursue it. So, for Ted, what they could do with 3%? Yeah, of course, he could develop that probably very quickly. It's not, rocket science time to do, but it's still going to take a lot of cost. It's going to draw things away. So the ROI just isn't going to be there for them to chase it. They'd be better pursuing, taking something like the Peach Goes and trying to do a one-off, whatever the berry flavor is trending for this year. That makes more sense. Lower cost, you might want to look at that, right? So it really has to come down to the hard dollars and cents. And if a trend makes sense to pursue it, I think it makes sense, but don't do it because you just have FOMO.
No, I like that. And the FOMO is very hard not to want to jump into. It's very tough because it just draws you in and you feel like if I don't do this, I'm not going to get the success this other company or brand did if I don't join in. Just quickly, Ted, maybe you can just give us 2 things that you see trending this year in your category, and 2 tactics that you think will benefit you. And if that's influencers or paid advertising, something that you think that really stands out that's going to help you guys this year that can give other entrepreneurs ideas on moving forward as well.
Yeah, we had a lot of success with our Peach Goza. Jared's, probably got a fly in the wall for our development meetings, but yeah, we've got some additional fruit flavors that we're going to launch. We may also launch a hazy version of our IPA. So, both sides of the spectrum in terms of what we're producing already, going a little bit more crafty, and then a little bit lighter, a little bit fruitier for us. What's working out there, we're getting much more into video than we've been in the past. We've been on social media for a long time. We haven't quite made the jump to TikTok yet, but I think that's an area where we're going to go. And we're really hoping to get that experiential piece back up and running. It's difficult with COVID, but getting product sampled, getting people trying the product, that's number one for us, and trying to get that back up and running, because once people try and taste our product, they usually end up buying it. So that's what we're looking forward to.
I love it. And I can't wait to try the hazy IPA. I'll send you my home address. You can share that along. I'll be very excited to be your test guinea pig. No problem. All the other beers are fantastic. So, and I love the taste profile that you guys have created. So brilliant. Ju, on your side, what are you seeing for trends and tactics, and which ones are standing out the most for you this year?
I think it's really right now, I think people are looking for clean ingredients, and the plant-based and sugar-free is still, I think, more demanding than ever, especially the plant-based ingredients. And now I think, it's people with the growth of e-commerce, people could actually start comparing products better and better, and then your ingredients and what's inside it. So people are smarter again every year after year, and just making sure we're up to date and making sure we're using the most effective and / what customers are looking for.
And is there any tactics that you're looking at? Are you heavy into TikTok, or are you bouncing into any other platforms or influencers that are really helping you move forward?
For us at the moment, we're not on TikTok yet, but we should. But we're actually rolling out more training programs with the stores to making sure all the staffs know all the reason why we put all those ingredients inside like gummy vitamins.
I love it. Everybody's got their own little movement based on what they're doing. So this is brilliant. David, how about yourself? What are you guys doing on the trending side? I'm sure you're on TikTok. I know you're on TikTok. You have to be.
Funny enough, I'm not. My partner's on it and everyone's on it. And it's funny. My dosage, and she always laughs at me. Instagram has reels, and I'm like, sometimes I'll flip through that. They're like, you're on the fake TikTok. You need to get on the real one. But I would say it's like similar to what everyone's saying. Like, you kind of have to follow. I think it's eventual, to your point, JP, that we'll be on TikTok. We've talked about it as a team. It's kind of crazy just see how fast and social media changes. I'm like, I remember a couple of years ago, everyone needed to be on Instagram, Snapchat. I'm like, I haven't heard of Snapchat in forever. I don't even know if it still exists. So I think those type of things, I think more than just kind of, your product itself, it's like the platforms you're on and how you communicate to your customers, that's going to change significantly, and testing out which one makes sense for you. So I love what Jared said about the Hush brand. I didn't know about that, but that's super smart, huge gamble, and definitely paid off for them.
I love it. And what are you seeing for trends? And you can go category across all categories, but what do you see as the next big thing that entrepreneurs need to look for?
I think it's going to be the plant-based. I hate to be the stereotypical. I think that's just what it is. I see more and more people getting used to it and trying it. It's being a little bit more open. I do think it's going to be in the seafood side of things, though. I do think it's going to be the plant-based type of seafoods that's going to be really changing the game a lot. I think there's a lot of folks who started being pescatarians and wanting to do that one last switch, and that might be the last thing for them.
I love it. Jared, over to you. What's the trends and tactics this year?
Ted, I did not know you were developing that. That's really funny. I'm very much looking forward to those. So I think, in trends right now, there's a huge focus on health and wellness. So whether that's developing a product that's directly in that space or adding in a functional ingredient, both of those are going to do well. And that's really hot and trending for the foreseeable future, especially if it's around immunity or stress or sleep. Those are still the three big hot ones in the area. GI tract being the distant fourth in terms of what people are looking at. And then in terms of marketing, we're finally seeing things start to open up again, especially, maybe not in Alberta right now, but we're slowly getting back to things opening. Sampling is slowly starting to come back. Experiential is slowly coming back, and people are starting to shop and take their time a little bit more in store. And so they're starting to do discovery again in store. So for myself and the agency, it's very exciting because we're finally getting back to some really cool integrated campaigns where you're seeing in-store elements really driving traffic from that store to something virtual back to that in-store purchase through things like QR codes or through extended engagement with that brand through recipes or things like that, where you're really getting these omni-channel campaigns built out. So that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing more of, and it's probably going to pick up. You'll see it for the holidays for sure, but definitely 2022, it's coming back big.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Super informative. You guys are doing great things. Keep up the amazing work. And just to round it off, I think the key takeaways here is that, build a brand, build a great brand, get people behind it, build that community, make sure that you're listening all around to the people that you're working with. If it's brand managers, account managers and buyers, all the way to your customer and your consumer. But have a purpose and stick to it, and don't fall outside the lines and muddy your brand, but stick to where you're going and envision long and make it big. So thank you again, guys, for sharing today. That was fantastic.
Amazing. So next we have another panel. We're going to talk about winning the digital shelf with Isaac, Marie, and Agnes. Hi, guys. Everybody else from the last panel can drop off of the video.
Hey, Laura.
Hey.
How are you?
Great. So if everybody can start by giving sort of a 30-second introduction about themselves, that would be great, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, I guess I'll go first if you don't mind.
Sure, Isaac. Yep.
My name is Isaac Wanzam. I'm the founder and chief strategist at Geeks E-commerce. We're an e-commerce agency based just outside Toronto in Whitby. We spend a lot of time working with brands around the world, retailers here in Canada, but also a lot of CPG brands. Some you'll know, companies like Lassonde, McCain, Bimbo, and everybody of that nature. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Marie?
Hi, everyone. I'm Marie, the founder of Sampler. At Sampler, we help brands digitize product sampling, so very in line with today's topic. And we work with emerging brands as well as big brands, about 600 brands to date. So excited to be part of the conversation.
Amazing. Agnes?
Hey everyone, my name is Agnes. I'm the head of sales over at Change Connect. We are a sales consultancy. So we do anything and all things that have to do with growing an organization's top line, CPG being one of our verticals. So I figure we'll come in and have a chat with Marie and Isaac today.
Awesome. Jeffrey?
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. And thank you very much for joining us today. Very excited to dive into our Winning the Digital Shelf. And I think maybe the first part that we could start with, and I think it's kind of influential today, that once we've kind of gone through this pandemic, and I'm not going to say that we're out of the pandemic, but as we're maneuvering through it, one of the things that's really changed is how consumers are buying and how consumers are interfacing with products today. I think we can go back in time and say that, getting samples or QR coding or spending time in a store and having someone hand things out and trying things, I think that's been kind of our de facto, what we kind of grew up to and what we probably enjoyed, going to Costco so that we could take a toothpick and eat some piece of whatever they're selling or giving away. I'm sure we've all done that. Always exciting. I'm sure there's people that just spend their time eating those all day and then decide to go shopping. So, but in that process, a lot has changed. And what has changed the most about it is that brands are now being challenged by many startups coming in with new products. They're starting to get the ears and the eyes of the consumer, but these big brands are now saying, I've got to compete better. And what I need to do is start looking at this world differently. And how do I get out in front of those customers? So Marie, maybe you can start and share a little bit about how you guys approached, and when you started your business, how you approached going into this market. You came from a background of working and doing the offerings of all these great products and pushing them out to people. And you saw a gap and said, you know what, I need to tackle this. This needs to change. This is too old school for me. Let's go in this direction. Maybe you can share a little bit about that direction you and Sampler took.
Yeah, so I was at the University of Ottawa when I first took my first brand ambassador job. I worked for Mosaic at the time, like many of us, I'm sure, did, handing out samples. I was in grocery stores, I was on street corners, and I recognized that, every single time you ask a brand what makes their product so special, they answer with an experience. They're going to say it's the taste, it's the touch, it's the packaging. And I did that, by the way, on my LinkedIn yesterday. I tested that to see if it was true, and it is true. That's exactly what every brand founder will say. And so I recognized at that moment that experiences are really valuable. Trial is very important. Yet we were giving a sample to someone who was just randomly walking down the street, and then we were letting them go away with all of the insights that we could have about how their experience was and whether or not that experience would convert to a purchase. So I was studying digital marketing, so that was driving me nuts. I just thought there's so much data opportunity. So fast forward I think it was like 5 years later, I actually went ahead and started Sampler, and I was surprised to think that no one was actually doing this. I'll tell you, building a new category, like as we were talking just earlier, even in tech, is really difficult. We're 7 years into building Sampler, and the COVID-19 pandemic, as horrible as it has been a quick reflect. It really helped people reflect on the challenges of traditional product sampling because all of a sudden safety was a concern, right? So the shift to digital is happening right now because of safety concerns. And we're seeing huge amounts of demand for what we call digital product sampling or e-sampling, which is ultimately targeting a consumer online and shipping a sample direct to home, because direct to home is a lot safer than the Costco experience or whatnot. But it took time. It's not easy to shift an industry that's been doing things for the same way and for a long time. But now that behavior has been kind of forced onto the industry, I don't think anyone will really go back to 100% traditional sampling, because now they recognize they can collect data. They can have all those benefits. And by the way, Sampler is launching today a cost-effective solution that will make sampling direct to home the exact same price as handing out a sample in grocery store. So we're at that point of scale now where there's literally no other reason to do sampling in store.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
I'm
you.
hitting the red button again, which probably should be green or whatever, but I don't know how else to do it on here, but very exciting. Congratulations. And I like what you kind of shared about the data opportunity, that there's a massive amount of data that we're not capturing. And I know Agnes and Isaac, you both have a lot of data points that you guys capture in this. Maybe Agnes, you can share a little bit more about how you guys tackle that data side, because one, you guys are driving sales, you're driving how these brands are interacting, where they're getting their products to, and they got to be dying to get some real information. And as Marie shared, handing out a sample and that person walking away and you never see them again, that's not exactly the best way to find out if they've ever bought or if they ever do anything with your product. Maybe they spit it in the pail. You will never know because you're not following them around. So Agnes, maybe we can share a little bit about how in your, I think it's been 10 plus years on how you've been doing this inside of your business, and how you can share a little bit about what that data collection looks like today.
Absolutely. So, the way we look at it in also an interesting twist too, because a lot of times when we talk about data, we're talking about marketing data or conversion, marketing to sales conversion data. But when we track, our customers' pipeline and what their interaction look like and their conversion, we're really tracking from I always say let's start our customer journey by when the customer is aware that they need this product, because the whole conversion and the evangelist piece is another category of events altogether. But from the moment that the customer recognizes that they need their need, all the way down to a repeat, whether they are a micro influencer in their own network where they're referring or there is a repurchase opportunity. When you're looking at it holistically from all the way from marketing all the way down to conversion, it's interesting what you can collect in terms of the data that you can look at, even in the CPG space. Because when you talk about the idea of sampling, what Marie was just saying, is the Costco experience that much more superior than what Marie is doing in terms of home delivery experience. I'm actually one of Marie's fans. I'm one. I'm in her monthly party trying to get these samples, and she makes it really fun, right? So, and in that part, it's not just about going to Costco and spending the day there and getting the free samples and then shopping. It's also about the atmosphere they have created in terms of the avatar that they collect in the parties, and what is it that they are doing in attracting the brands that allows her to run things more efficiently. But that same idea is in the brand individually going through and calculating their numbers in terms of conversion. Because to me, we measure campaigns, right? We measure effectiveness of campaigns, and sampling is one area. Using influencers another, and or running, radio ads. I was talking to a client yesterday about running TikTok. Getting on TikTok, pros and cons of doing content on TikTok. So for me, really is breaking down each campaign and each avenue of bringing client in or bringing customer in and getting exposure, and seeing the conversion rate per campaign and whether we have targeted the right client. A lot of times, like yesterday, for example, we were talking about this particular health food brand, and she said, Agnes, my brand, we're for women between the age of 30 to 70. That's my target audience. And I'm like, yo, hold on 1 second. The women between the age of 30 to 70 have gone through many life stages. So I'm like, their buying behavior and what they're attracted to, and whether they're even on TikTok. It's actually everyone's on TikTok at the moment, so maybe TikTok is not a good example. But the way that you get to market is a little different. So really breaking down the individual data point down to buying behaviors and their optimal medium for touch points. All that data point can actually now be collected. I've enjoyed COVID personally. Not because of COVID, because of the downtime in looking at and how it gave a lot of organization an opportunity to revamp their organization in a way that makes it a lot more efficient than pre-COVID from a business standpoint. And I think it gives people a lot of opportunity, an organization a lot of opportunity to look at the way that they run their business and to run it in a way that I think not even more efficient, it's smarter. It's smarter. We talk about niche marketing. We talk about really chasing after and owning a particular niche before moving on. So there's quite a bit of, I guess, targeted data that I would suggest to do for sure. And same as Marie, I wouldn't give up a chance to collect any data point. Collect it, and then we'll know how to use it later. But don't give up any opportunity to collect the data point.
No, and I love that, and thank you for sharing all of that. And I think that there's there's a lot of little pieces that you really put into there that make it impactful. But the biggest one is the biggest two, I will say, is one, you create an experience. So this experience goes into many verticals, into many directions. Obviously, if you're marketing, you can't be marketing to a 40 gap. So 30 to 70 is pretty big. You probably want to shrink that down. And I'm sure today's data shrinks it down to 30 to 35, 35 to 42, 42 to 43. Like, it's really impactful now when you're getting that data, because you're learning so much about those buyers and what they're doing at that age group. But I think the biggest one that really resonates is that when you are looking at the data, understand the data. Because there's so much metrics that are just being pushed away and they're just going to the standards. Oh, this is what we've been doing for years. And I think Malcolm Gladwell did this the best. They went and tested marketing spends, and he wrote a big thing on this, or was his podcast. And he really dove into what did this spend really do? And was this ad dollars really being influential in driving the brand? There was a part where he said that they forgot to put the spend through, and it went months and they didn't even notice. And then they had all this money left to spend, and they needed to do something with it. And there was massive panic around the business because the traditional spend wasn't being done and everybody was going to get fired. And really what they did is they just needed to look at the data and understand who their consumer was and what the outcome was. And Isaac, I know in your business, you guys spend a lot of time helping brands understand a lot of that. You've built a lot of tools that help speed up the process. But there's a lot of data that you guys go through. Maybe you can share a little bit about how you guys function with these brands globally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we come in at a slightly different part of the equation. By that time, they come to us, they've gone through what Marie does and what Agnes does. And they're finally, at the point of the purchase, which is what we call it, they're on the shelf, they're trying to determine, is this product for me? And for us to achieve success, meaning we're driving conversion, driving sales, and some of the things we spoke about, we have to be able to deliver on that message, on that promise that you really make with your brand at the beginning. So we begin to look at do we understand who our customers, who are we talking to, what kind of story are we telling them? You talked about this huge gap between 30 and 70. You can't tell the same product story in such a large gap. So we spend a lot of time really digging into what that means and translating that into content. Then we look at where's that content going to live. So a lot of our customers are selling on Amazon. They're selling, with partners like Walmart and some of the folks that the Flow founder spoke about today. But all those have different requirements in terms of how do we speak to them and how do you sell to that? There's different style guides. There's different expectations from imaging and so forth. So our job is to kind of take all that different story and visually present it in order to drive that sale. So when you do talk about e-commerce, there's some very, very specific, obviously, data points you want to talk about. You're talking about, cart abandonment. How many people are actually putting a product into a cart at that store level and then deciding not to buy it, right? When you're spending money on advertising, what does a conversion of that look like? How many people are you actually bringing versus how many are you turning into into buyers. We see customers who spend a lot of money. I'm going to do a massive buy on Google, or there's one on Amazon, but for some reason I'm not getting the sales I'm looking for. We get into that and we look at, can I come to a conclusion that, well, look at your pages, look at the images you're using. Believe it or not, there's still startups and even large companies that are doing their own shots. They're using iPhones, and for us, we look at some of that and say, how do you expect to actually realize the benefit of the spend? So we use a lot of these data points and a lot of those driving sort of factors up front to really turn that into a growth opportunity and actually help sell products, which ultimately, whether you're in CPG or otherwise, that the brands are trying to do, whether you're small, you're medium, you're flow, or you're McCain, you want to tell a story that makes a customer feel comfortable and really confident in the quality of what they're going to get. The COVID we mentioned here, a lot of our traditional, let me taste it and have it in my hand before I decide to buy it, didn't happen for a very long time. But I want people to look at this product and feel that, okay, this is good for me, this is healthy, because images are great, because you've given the nutritional values, you've shown me all angles of the product. You've used lifestyle photography and presentation to see how I could be using this product or drinking this juice, as it were. So that to us is, translating those data points into an actual opportunity to drive a sale.
So what you're kind of diving into is that all of this experience has to be somewhat relatable to the category and to the people that are going to consume it. And if you don't find a way to make it relatable, there's not really going to be the outcome that you're looking for as a brand.
Absolutely. And I think, just listen to some of the previous panel, a lot of business owners, they'll spend so much time and passion creating this product, and they'll go through all the research to ensure that it tastes right and so forth. But when it comes time to show it to the world, it's poor lighting. It doesn't look like that's something that I want to put into my body. So ultimately, that's where that decision point is. And if you don't get that right, it's almost like everything else you did was an investment that's not going to come back. So that's how, in our world anyway, all those things work together, is whether it's bread or it's muffins or it's a pair of headphones, right? You have to be able to communicate that value, that quality, and really build that confidence and that trust in order for your customer to actually be able to make that transaction.
So if you take those, the last lines of trust and quality and the lighting and all of these things, now let's say that we put all brands out and it's all equal and everybody has amazing photography, well-written, focused on everything. What's the next level? You're trying to win this digital shelf. So, and maybe Maria, you can jump in and share, because you've really had to change the way, like you said, today it's at home, the pricing's the same, we are competing. What's the wow factor now? If everybody's equal, what becomes the new wow factor? What changes my experience now from what I have been doing to where I am today?
Well, I'm thinking about it as what would I do as a brand? And like we spent a little bit, we talked a lot about something that I think is changing, which is personas. Like Agnes, you were talking about that like very long age demographic. So many brands come to us at Sampler and say, I want to reach Active Susie, right? Like we've all kind of heard about Active Susie. Like Active Susie is dead. Who you want is the person who will buy your product. And I think like that's what the power of the digital shelf is. At the end of the day, next time someone says like, who do you want to target? I want to target someone who buys my product, right? Like that's what we want to do. And this is the power of what's happening right now in retail. The retail media networks that are starting to be built are so incredibly powerful, because you have a store that drives a purchase in a category, telling you this is the person you want to go after, and not caring at all about whether she's Active Susie or Lazy Marie, right? Like it's a person who will buy. And so I believe that the future of advertising is optimizing your campaign around people that buy your product. That's like fundamentally what I believe. And that's a very broad demographic set, probably. And sure, there might be some certain certain demographics that pop out of that. But I think that this gives a really interesting amount of time for brands that are D2C first to really win in this space. Like right now is the time where you can actually understand who's on your website, understand what they're doing. And so like yesterday, I was buying products. I actually bought a bunch of my friends. I asked a favor yesterday on LinkedIn, and I said, I'll make an order on your website. And you know what the biggest point of differentiation I saw on all those sites is someone charged $3 for shipping and the other charged $20. That to me is like problem number one. Like if you have people on your website, getting them to convert so that you can own their information, so you can understand them better, so you can market better is probably like the first thing I would do. So direct line of communication, as Agnes was saying, do not ever give up an opportunity to collect data. If I abandon cart because your shipping was $20, we've lost the opportunity of capturing my data. And you know what you'll have to do? You'll have to spend another $20 on Facebook ads to retarget me so I come back. Just give me the damn free shipping. It'll cost you a lot less. So I think we just need to stop thinking about personas, start thinking about there's people standing at my till, there's a person at my cash register. What does she look like? What does she want? How do I get her data? And then how do I do that over and over again?
And I love that you're going to the repeat model. And I think a lot of brands forget, or a lot of e-commerce places forget, that you need to get that first sale. You need to get that first data, as you mentioned. And if I don't have them check out, or at least check in and put their profile in, I've got nothing. All I've got is that there's some IP address in this neighborhood that was interested in my product. I'm going to retarget the hell out of them, spend way more money to get them back when I had them. And all I needed to do was simplify my process. And simplifying.
Absolutely. And I'll add, in 1 year from now, when Google removes the retargeting pixels or your cookies, you will be it'll be impossible to even do what you just said. So the time is now. Your shipping needs to be zero, and you need to make sure you capture the data.
And it's amazing you say that when they remove that. So you're forward thinking to what the possibilities of are that can ruin the digital shelf if you're not paying attention. But if you look back, mass email distribution used to be the thing. And then Canada blocked that. And I'm sure a lot of businesses took a big hit that day. And it's always trying to figure out what that next piece is going to be. And Agnes, I'm sure in your business, as helping these businesses grow and get into the right people, you have to focus on what the trends are, but how do I keep that person buying? How do I get them in there? How do I build a profile around them? And then instead of trying to find, as Marie shared, I'm trying to think of the names, the crazy Karens and the Susies and all of these names. And so instead of going after these profiles, you're actually just going to bucket your clients, your customers, into categories, and you can break them out however you choose, by age, by buying power, by whatever it is, and then just focus on making sure they're getting the right deals. And you're retargeting them with another great deal, because what you care about is closing the door and making sure that customer is repeatable, and not once, not twice, but 30 times over the next 3 years. So Agnes, how are you kind of taking that approach to emphasize a lot more to your clients that they need to be converting, because that's going to grow their business?
I think I'm going to piggyback on what Marie said and just give it some context too, because I don't want the audience out there to think just abandon the idea of avatars, because I don't think that's what Marie is saying. Marie is saying that you shouldn't be focused on an avatar when you don't have enough data to tell you what those avatar is just yet. So it's interesting, because a lot of times when we first work with startups, they in their mind create this avatar that they want to chase after. And back to what Marie's saying, it may or may not be the right avatar, but for the founders' belief, and a lot of times what I don't like to is the founders' belief is a profile type that's just like them. Because a lot of times they're solving and resolving their own issue, and hence they believe they are their own ideal avatar. And that's when we run into issues when we're talking about campaign and conversion ratio and what makes sense. So depending on the client and whether we agree based on market research, when we talk about running campaigns off avatar, we would actually give them feedback. But what Marie is saying, the other thing that is, aside from just running campaign off avatar type pre-data set, so to speak. But there's also this other piece that Marie's speaking to that I want to elaborate on, which is like attract like. So what Isaac's saying about having a brand story. So when you send your brand story out into the world, right, into the universe, you will attract people that to come to your site and or buy or try your product out that believe in what your brand messaging is. So back to Jeff, back to what you were saying earlier too. There is no, when we talk about all things being equal, you and I both know that it's not all things being equal. Some people tell their brand story better than others, and those are the people that's going to convert their customers, right? So a lot of times it is that brand story that attracts. It is your first purchase. I mean, after that, we talk about, Marie's free shipping, but free shipping and or retargeting right now, and or some sort of subscription that we can set up, any other, repeat or MRR strategy that we can put in place in terms of the CPG category. But it is that first purchase. And when we talk about that first purchase, how much of it is influence? When we talk about the customer buying journey, we're pretty scientific when we map out the stages. So when you talk about the buying journey, from needs recognition all the way to the first purchase, what we're finding in our data set is, especially during COVID, actually, and maybe it is, I'm not talking about, maybe it is that the Costco experience. So, it is CPG. So majority of the conversion has to happen with an online presence and or influencers and or things that you do online. But before, traditionally, I would say they're first some sort of a touch point being an influencer and or reading review, generally their own research part of the process. It's all the way from, I would say, 60 some odd percent of the entire customer journey pre-COVID. But what we're finding post-COVID is that touch point in the CPG category before it goes to an influencer is actually, I would say, as compared to traditional B2B, traditional B2C business, it hasn't moved as far as the other customer journey when their first touch point traditionally have been at the 40% mark. So when we're moving the needle to the 70 or 80% mark, where the first interaction would be, is a huge change versus the CPG category, which is about 60 to about 70-ish%. So the idea of using influencer becomes very important. And the idea of having good customer review becomes very important, because at the end of the day, they're buying into your brand story. They're buying into what someone else told them online. And the more credible the source, the better when you run the campaign. So yes, review is important, validated review is important, but also I'm a believer of you doing collaboration and doing influencers, because I find from a cost per point standpoint, it's fairly effective if you know how to use those campaign mechanism wisely.
It's amazing, Agnes, how you've kind of broken through so many of these stages. There's a lot. And from a startup founder perspective, there's a lot of things that you really have to learn and understand. And oddly enough, which is what all of you three fit into, is marketing. It's all about that marketing experience. How do I work with my customer? How do I focus on them? How do I make their journey easier? How do I collect their data? How do I profile them? How do I start to learn more about them and engage with them, make them my friend so that they'll continue to keep coming back and buying? And it all goes into that customer journey, like you said. And then you've got other pieces that help exemplify your business by putting in influencers and other tactics. They're going to help really exemplify that. So Isaac, taking all of these things that are kind of fitting into the bucket and how you're kind of helping close the door on that transaction, what are some of the things that you see as ways that businesses, startups specifically, can focus on conversions and helping their customer get to the end goal, which is a sale for you and a new customer and some new data points? What things do you see as being, call it trendy or call it the new post-COVID, however you want to look at it, but what are some of the things that you can share that the audience can learn from?
Sure, absolutely. I think in terms of post-COVID, I think one of the things that has become evidently clear is the impact of digital on all sales. CPG's probably seen the most growth, groceries seen the most growth, probably more so than any other category over the past 12 months. So as far as trending is, you're going to have to learn and understand how to sell online, right? You're not going to be able to deliver and create that experiential approach that may have been the previously approach. So that's one reality for sure. The other part is also we talk about where the digital shelf itself is, but the digital shelf is in so many different places, right? I mean, whether you're in the marketplace, obviously, whether you're selling on Amazon as an example, that's going to be different in terms of what your tactics are and what you can do, right? You can't speak your brand story the same way on somebody else's market platform as you would if you're in a D2C sort of a setup. So you have to think about, how do I make those things work together? How do I use my D2C to build my brand, but leverage really the traffic and opportunity that a mammoth like Amazon may have, or a retail partner like a Walmart may have. So really understanding how those two things work together is really very, very critical. And then just to go back to what I mentioned earlier, I think that you need to do a good job to be able to close that gap just by how you present your product. How it's called online merchandising. If you walk into any store, if you walk into any restaurant, how you feel about you being there is going to determine whether or not you stay, whether or not you buy anything. And then after that, it's all part of the same experience, right? The sale doesn't end when somebody converts. What is the follow through? You've convinced me to buy something from your website. What does the delivery look like? Do I get an email that said thank you? Do I get a guarantee of return if I'm not happy with what I got? So that is true in all categories, but certainly also very true in CPG, where it's still very new and people sometimes are not sure what and if they should buy. So that's how you grow that loyalty. Now, obviously when you're working with retail partners, you're selling on Loblaws, or you're selling through, somebody like Sobeys, you don't have that same degree of control, but you still have to be able to be part of their messaging and part of that. So they want you to respond. They want you to be able to to be creative in terms of where it is. And then to go back to what Agnes mentioned, really, let's talk about the behavior of our customers, right? If somebody's buying my product wholesale because it's water and they want to buy it for the office, that purchaser on Staples business is going to be different than somebody who's buying it for their family, as an example. So let's really understand what our packaging looks like, what is our pricing needs to be like in order for us to take advantage of all these different touch points. Now, of course, to go back to Sept, they've partnered with Shopify. You're going to be able to actually make transaction between those two platforms really quite seamlessly. So that has also implications in terms of where that shelf is. What can I show? What am I presenting? I can't go into a long story, but can I make that same degree of comfort with different tactics? Do I use an infographic instead of a lifestyle photography? Do I use an A+ page or enhanced content? Do I make videos? Where does user-generated content come into my strategy? That's all part of what we call social proof. In it, how does social proof become part of my conversation? I think Marie mentioned reviews. Critical. Nobody buys anything without somebody saying, you know what, I tried this, and it was exactly what they said. All that is part of, from our standpoint, not only just trends, but just ways that you need to execute in order to win the digital shelves, answer questions that your customers may have about your competition. What are they not happy with over here? That's what we begin when we begin to build content. They like this, they didn't like that. These are the issues. We take that and make that part of our conversations, whether it's food or otherwise. So all this, and it's a long answer to a short question, Jeff, really has to be part of your go-to-market. It is a competitive space. Whether you're launching a new disruptive product, there's very few categories where you're not going to find other players, right? So you asked, how do I differentiate myself? It's all about that experience, that follow through, that if you think about it, the brands you are most happy about, the brands you go back to, whether they're businesses or products, are the ones that make you feel valued as a customer. And ultimately, that's what we want to do.
I love it. And a great summary too. You look at, I think the key ones you can take out of that is all about presentation. Present something that people want, follow through to the very end and keep following through. Build your social proof, because today everybody wants to be handed with I don't know what the term was. Is it soft gloves or something? They want to be that glove service, right? White glove service. I think that's the term. Everybody wants to be taken care of from beginning to end, and they don't want any discrepancy in that journey. So you almost have to be a perfectionist in order to make this work, if that's how you're going to take over that digital shelf.
Absolutely.
So in saying that, and because we're coming near the end, I would love to get one trend that you guys see and one tactic that you think is what's going to define this category. And because you guys are supporting startups and supporting businesses, maybe you can share a little bit about where you see that digital shelf tactic is. And it could be, again, we've talked about TikTok and all these other things that are really the in thing, but those are tactics. What are the trends? What's one trend you guys see that is really formulating today, outside of what Maria already shared about her business doing what she's doing, because that's phenomenal. But outside of that, what other things do you see as a tactic that's going to really change the CPG environment? And then what is that? What's that trend and what's that one tactic? And maybe we'll start with you, Marie.
Yeah, I spoke to it very quickly, but the retailer media network, if you're not buying media from your retail partner today, start. I think they're really thinking about like exactly what we talked about. Like, I want to target people who purchase in my category. That's the best target market. People who, if you're in the cookie dough business, people who buy cookie dough is your target market, right? So, or people that maybe buy adjacent industries that you've identified as relevant. But the retailer media networks are a really exciting trend.
Agnes, over to you. One tactic and one trend that you see as being big this year.
I'm going to go with the timeless customer experience. I think the core of it, especially in the CPG category, is so expensive. Like the cost of acquisition is so expensive. So I don't want, and it's so easy for someone to leave your brand. So I think I guess my one advice is to make sure when you have them as a loyal customer, then don't screw it up. Like, I don't care if it's shipping, or I don't care if it is, labeling, one complaint on the customer, like comes to customer experience, or dealing with a customer experience rep, whatever that is. It should be seamless to buy you, and it should be easy to buy you again. So really look at your customer sort of experience and be able to take away some of those barrier to repurchase.
And one tactic?
Yes, I think my tactic, I'm gonna hammer that still. So I think the tactic is really to look at your customer experience and be able to even improve it if at that. So, look at where perhaps you're not doing so hot in the customer experience. When you talk about CPG, everyone talks about how great it, like a lot of my founders talk about, I'm gonna spend more money on making it taste better. I'm going to give them more choices, and they spend a lot of money on R&D. And the truth of it is, great, you're giving them options in R&D in terms of what product to buy, but at the same time, you still have to make it easy for them to come back.
I love it. Isaac, quickly, one tactic and one.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say a trend is something that we probably have started to see over the past 12 to 24 months. Brands are no longer going to be the only trusted source for their authenticity or their story alone. It's going to be really your customers who are going to convince other customers. We don't believe anymore what companies telling us about them. It's really what our peers are telling us. Try this product. So as far as tactics goes, make that part of your strategy. Let your customers be your evangelists. Tell everybody else about the product, and create tools that are easy for them to do that, whether it's reviews on your page or whatever. Upload videos of them using your product, but ultimately, I think that's where that's going to go.
I love it. Agnes, Marie, Isaac, you guys are phenomenal. Thank you very much for sharing today. I took a million notes. I can't even summarize because I've been writing all over the page. It's been awesome. But I think if I was to summarize it, understand the customer journey, figure out how you are unique and how you can understand your customer. So profile, social proof the hell out of your product, and just keep selling and deliver that white glove service. And the digital space is yours. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sounds right. Thanks, everybody.
You guys were awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you for everything.